Hey, Reef Builders. My name is Remy. Welcome back to another session of Reef Therapy. I believe this is 111 episodes we've got at this point. And as of now, we do not currently have a sponsor for the podcast. So if you're someone who makes those decisions for a company and would like to be a sponsor on Reef Therapy, please reach out to us on social medias or whatever. You just got to be cool, though. Like, you got to be a cool company, okay, if
You
you
got
want to
to
be
have
on.
a really cool phrase like, what's in your water? We have to be able to say that every 30
Yeah.
seconds.
Just like something. And then obviously we'd love to have even better if you'd want to be on during the podcast every so often so we can talk about the products and things that you guys have and all of that. So if you are listening right now and you're like, yeah, that's probably us, let's talk. Just hit us up on socials. We'll connect you with the right people. Raj, most likely,
Raj.
and he'll take your money, so it'll be great. Yeah, today I'm joined by Salem, and we're just going to catch up. We're going to talk about some things that we're really excited about in the hobby. But first of all, I wanted to ask you, Salem, because you just went on like a month-long vacation to the Bahamas, which I'm very jealous of. But tell us about your trip. Tell us about the dissertation you wrote while you were there. Tell us about what you saw in the ocean, all those things.
Well, I'm very thankful I got to go on the trip. It was a great time. It was much better than Topeka, Kansas, in about every way. So it was a lot of fun. I got to learn what island time was, which I very much enjoyed. Had like some of the best like pineapple and mangoes I've had in my life, pina coladas and daiquiris that were like I understood at that moment why people liked them, and before I didn't. Fresh seafood a lot. It was great. It was a fun trip, but there was a lot of not so fun components of it that were kind of like an existential crisis for me, basically. So up until that point, we were like having a great time, and I'm like, it's snorkel day. We're gonna go snorkel, and I'm like expecting like pristine reefs for some reason. We were on Cat Island, which is like the least populated island in the Bahamas that still like has civilization. So I'm like, okay, there's not much like agricultural runoff. There's no problems. It'll be great. And I snorkel out there and it's just devastated. There was nothing. It was all macroalgae, a lot of cool macroalgae, not a lot of coral. There was like some, pseudodiploria. It was one of the ones I figured out was out there, like kind of a brain coral. There was a couple of those, but out of every 20 colonies, maybe one was healthy. The rest all had black band disease or like stony coral tissue loss disease. So I saw both of those in the wild. There's a lot of gorgonians. The gorgonians were much healthier, but even those had like some fungal infections I had read about, like very obvious, like purple lesions. Like it was just really depressing. I was just sitting there, like, floating above all this diseased coral, and I was just kind of like, all right, so it is real. It is not overhyped. Like the Caribbean reefs are like definitely dying, and it was kind of a wake up call of like, wow, like I might not even get to see, like the next generation might not even, will likely not even see this stuff in the wild. Like these species are dying. This is an extinction event, and there's probably nothing I can do about it. And that's kind of sucked because I've been researching the coral disease stuff for so long. So seeing the disease states in front of me and realizing I can do nothing to stop this as a person was a very like that was like a kind of a gut punch. I was just like, wow, this is a very big issue. This is not something in a lab. Yeah. So then after that, I kind of just had a very like a day of introspection of just kind of thinking of like, okay, what can I do about this? Nothing, but I can learn about what caused it. Because I'm like, this is not bleaching. This is just macroalgae dominant phase shift on the reef. All the population's changed, and there's disease. There's not any bleaching of any kind. So this is not like a heat stress thing. Maybe it plays a part. And then I remembered, like I had read a bunch of stuff about dissolved organic carbon in the past and how that causes all these things. So I went down this huge rabbit hole. I just like for 5 days, it became not a vacation, and I was just on my computer reading. My parents were like, "You should come watch a movie," and I'm like, "I'll be there in 5 minutes." And I had like I read like 60 papers, and just I was just like completely motivated to try to understand this issue holistically. And that's when I'm like, okay, well, I understand kind of what's happening now in a lot better way, at least in these reefs in the Caribbean. And I'm going to write about it because my brain started to spin about Does this happen in our tanks? And I think, yeah. I think all of the methods that we do basically cause the same issues, and maybe that's why people have such difficult time keeping coral now compared to 20 years ago. Plus, like, no live rock, plus, like, LEDs, plus, like, 10 other things. But, I think dissolved organic carbon is the crux of all of it, and it's the big bad we should be worrying about. And we should be chasing low levels of DOC compared to basically any other parameter. Because it really, to me, and to all the literature, it seems like that is the master chemical regulator of the microbiome. The only reason, or one of the only reasons, that a lot of the good bacteria switch to being bad is because a high enough level of DOC occurs, and then you got jelly, you got RTN, you got STN. So, and every method we have pretty much adds DOC to the water. We dose amino acids. We use coral food with like yeast extract and fish meal and all these weird strains of bacteria that aren't endemic to the saltwater environment. We use refugiums. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got to rethink stuff, I think.
Yeah. So I think that I've got a couple of questions. I'll start with did it feel warmer on your skin? Not that you have anything to kind of, I guess you haven't been to the ocean very much in the past anyway. So was the ocean warm to the touch?
It was actually kind of cool.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It was like a 70, 72, I'd say. 70 to 74, somewhere in there. I would feel comfortable saying it felt like that.
Because I know that Sarah Stevens from the Butterfly Pavilion had talked about earlier this year how they had already started the warnings for temperature in the Caribbean in that area. So I was wondering if maybe it had already started to rise. But as we are recording this podcast, I think they're declaring Hurricane Beryl as one of the largest hurricanes of all time this early in the season. So it's smoking Jamaica right now, I think, and it's a Category 4. It may even be a Category 5 at this point, but obviously warm water contributes to that. But in the aftermath of a hurricane, it's usually a good thing for the reefs because it cools everything down. From what I understand, I'm not an expert in that area, but I know that they were begging for a hurricane last year when the ocean temperatures were so warm, like 90s. Crazy to think about.
Yeah, I actually I got to talk to someone that's part of PIMS, which is the Perry Institute of Marine Science, and she owned a resort down there. So we were like eating lunch at this resort, and my mom offhandedly was like, "He's into coral," and she's like, "I take care of a coral nursery," and I was like, "What species? What do you mean?"
Can I see your nursery?
Yeah.
Show me your babies.
So it's all Acropora cervicornis, and they're like they're growing them on the PVC trees and outplanting them at the beach I snorkeled at. I snorkeled at that resort, and I had a long conversation with her, and I'll have like an interview article too, hopefully pretty soon. But she said that right now, at least around Cat Island, the temperatures were lower because it's still not, for whatever reason, had not got to the heat waves yet. But last year, yeah, it was like 90 degrees. And they had Acropora cervicornis frags they had put out on the reef, and they got smoked in like a week. So, yeah.
Yeah. There is the whole like jostling of the reef that happens during a hurricane as well. But I would almost equate it to, the scorched earth mentality of, okay, but this allows for new growth. And, the coral reefs have done this for hundreds of thousands of years, right? They've been through hurricanes and they've been through all of that. It's just the warming of the climate and everything that is not a normal thing, and that is our fault.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is even if you have one of those events and it cools the water, it's still going to have runoff, microplastics, then it'll get hot again. So
yeah. The other question, because you mentioned DOC, that just continues to. I'm not super familiar with this. This is a new frontier for me, and I think probably for a lot of people, this is a new parameter to kind of test for. And obviously, Triton does the NDOC tests that you can send in a water sample, and they'll tell you all about it. But this is something that builds up in your system over time, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So dissolved organic carbon is any organic carbon source that is in the system. So, I mean, it can be, carbon isn't everything. So your fish food, any type of nutrient input, the fish themselves will produce it. The coral produce it. Macroalgae produces it. So there's just constant expression and production of DOC, and we're constantly adding it to our systems. You should think of it kind of like alkalinity. So alkalinity is a measure of all the different ions that can buffer pH. DOC is a measure of all of the different soluble organic carbon compounds that are in the water. So it's not one thing, it's a mixture of lots of different things. There's labile DOC, as it's called, which is DOC that can be uptaken and utilized by organisms, such as sponges. Then there's non-labile DOC, which is kind of stuff that's not organically available. And the labile DIC or DOC is likely what causes a lot of the issues in terms of the bacteria having pathogenic gene expression and things like that. But also through several processes like oxidation with ozone, or even like UV sterilization, you can take some of that non-labile DOC, keep misspeaking, and convert it to labile DOC. So like, some of the like methods that we have that could be reducing overall DOC, I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts. People have looked into it in the industry for a long time. So like Sanjay and Dr. Feldman had a lot of papers back in like 2010. Matt Wandell had some write-ups about it. So a lot of the OGs in the hobby, Bob Stark with ESV, have been talking about DOC for a very long time. All I really did was put the microbiome to it because no one had really talked about that much before. That's how like carbon dosing works, right? You add DOC through a carbon source, through vodka, ethanol, whatever, and then it causes bacteria to increase in population. Those bacteria eat nitrates and phosphates and lowers your nutrients. But we didn't know what bacteria we were growing. It seems all the existing literature supports now that they're likely opportunistic pathogens. They're copiotrophs, so bacteria which thrive in high carbon environments, whereas all of the good bacteria that are planktonic or associated with the coral or are oligotrophic, which means they thrive in low carbon environments, like natural reefs. So right now, natural reefs are no longer oligotrophic, they are copiotrophic. That's caused macroalgae. Macroalgae then produces even more DOC. It causes a positive feedback loop because then that triggers a disease state, coral die, more macroalgae grows, and it continues. So I think in our systems, we have a similar positive feedback loop. We're using macroalgae to remove nutrients, but as they grow, they produce more DOC. So in a way, it makes the water cleaner, but it also makes it much dirtier in terms of the carbon profile. But yeah, it's organic chemistry, so it's hard to test for.
I'll ask the same question that I asked when I was new to the aquabiomics side of things, where you send in your water sample, they give you results. Okay, so Triton is doing this NDOC test. I send in my water sample. It comes back. It shows me maybe I'm high for DOC in my water. What then? I know you offered some solutions to that in your paper, but if you could kind of go through a couple of those.
Yeah, so what's great about this compared to something like aquabiomics is it's very actionable. Water changes. That's the easiest way to deal with it. Dilution is the best solution. So you want to remove DOC from your system? Put in new water. Take it out. Removing detritus patches and things like that when you do water changes. Potentially those could, leach DOC continually. I kind of had a long exchange with Adam Sutherland, and then also Bob Stark and Andrew Baum on Facebook about if that could be true or not. And it was probably good to remove it anyways. So that's something. Now, UV sterilizers and ozone could both, reduce DOC, but they also could harm the microbiome. So my whole take was we should manage DOC in the ways that are best to also preserving good diversity in the microbiome, because DOC is getting rid of the good guys. If we have other methods that are getting rid of the good guys too, we're fighting even more of an uphill battle. So to me, the three things that made sense are water changes, the use of GAC, so activated carbon, but that can be problematic with traces, so that's a double-edged sword, and then sponges. So cryptic sumps, the Tyree stuff, old school stuff. Sponges now, there was a huge dissertation, for a PhD that was written, 200 pages, where this guy just broke down the metabolism of sponges. And he revealed that sponges are not filter feeders as we thought. They are DOC or DOM feeders, so dissolved organic matter feeders. They have 15% of their metabolism is eating bacterial plankton, but the rest, they just absorb stray organic carbon from the water, and that's how they grow. So if you got a cryptic sump, there you go. You have a continual loop to where sponges can continue to grow in that environment and take DOC out of your system passively. And they're not producing, some species can have allelopathic compounds that harm coral, but many don't. So that seems like an easy way for me. If you're like doing the Shine or the Triton method and you don't want to do water changes, put in a really robust cryptic sump and you could get away with not having to do them and you can continue your traces that way. Natural way to remove DOC.
So what if I don't have a cryptic sump and I just have a bunch of pineapple sponges all over my sump?
I mean, you got to think about like the biomass of the sponges, right? It's like pineapple sponges are doing something, but are there enough pineapple sponges in like the semi-dark areas of your sump to absorb the DOC in your like 150, 200 gallon system? They're doing something, but probably not a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to have a pretty robust cryptic area, kind of like Tyree described and all of the like 1997 stuff. So it's kind of like a full circle moment for me. I'm like, okay, all this stuff the older people have been talking about that were pioneers, were probably really ahead of their time because now there's all this new cutting edge science from like 2022 that shows that it really impacts coral health and the microbiome. So I just kind of put it all together.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to overcomplicate this hobby a lot. And I think that a lot of it was figured out in the early days of keeping coral alive. And the idea for me of a cryptic sump is so cool. I mean, it's like a refugium, but so many other different critters that you wouldn't typically see, right? Because you need pitch black darkness for the most part to grow all these things. And I don't know. I think it'd be really cool to have. So what do we have is there any kind of literature out there right now for how large the cryptic sump should be based on how many gallons your system is?
So I could do some math because I was going to figure that out, at least based on these papers. That paper, that huge PhD one, which actually calculated the amount of DOC per square centimeter of sponge like they absorbed. But
wow.
It's only those 3 species of sponges, so it's probably not like an exact 1-to-1. Now, like also in the paper, he stated that these 3 species of sponges had the highest reported, DOC absorption value in all the literature. So, I could probably do the math and figure out what that would look like, but it's likely going to be like, a conservative estimate of that would be like double what that would be, since those sponge species were the most reported and like the best DOC eaters ever. So
yeah,
I could do it.
Reef Bum has a couple videos, I think, on his cryptic sump, and I believe his is 60 gallons, if I'm not mistaken. And he's running, I don't know how many different systems he's running through that cryptic sump, but I want to say it's maybe 200 to 400 gallons. So it's got a pretty decent sized cryptic sump, and it just all is plumbed into this big giant black cube.
Yeah, that's
you never really open it and just kind of like know that it's doing its thing,
Yeah, I've got a 50-gallon drum. All right, no, it's actually like a 40-gallon drum on about a 300-gallon system. But I think that it's not doing its job completely. But I also feed very, very heavily and have like not done water changes for a year. Because now that I'm coming home, I'm like looking at my ORP, which could be a useful tool in evaluating what your DOC is like on the fly. It's pretty low. I'm like, yeah. So I'm going to start doing water changes. If that does not fix the issue, then Triton Indoc. I'm going to play with some GAC and some different selected medias and stuff. So,
do you know what GAC is?
Granular activated carbon.
No, like GAC from Nickelodeon days. Do you know what GAC is?
Are you talking about the green slime?
It's GAK, GAC, and it was a toy. It's basically what I think is probably the first introduction to a kind of a slime, but it wasn't slime. It was in between like slime and silly putty, and it was $6. It was $5.99.
Dude, that was a lot back then.
Parents would never let me get it, but it was so awesome. So I don't know. Kids have always had a thing for slime apparently, but yeah. All my millennial people will be like, yeah, I totally wanted that too. So let's get on to the main little topic of conversation here, and I wanted to talk about things that excite us in the hobby. This could be personal, and a lot of mine are. But I think there's just so much negativity in the hobby right now, whether that be trolls or bickering back and forth. Salem, you've been a part of that. Congrats. Making some noise out there. But I want to talk about some of the things that are exciting to maybe inspire those that are listening to be like, okay, yeah, I've got a little bit of a perspective shift. I know we're all in the summer days right now, and usually the hobby gets neglected over the summer. I don't know. I'm still buying coral. I've never really understood that, but I can see where maybe you would slump a little in the summer as there's so much outdoor activity to do. But I'll let you start if there's something that excites you that we can talk about.
So, after visiting ACI Aquaculture last week, there's a lot of really cool Solomon Island stuff coming in. I don't know if they're just collecting from different spots or there's more demand now because the endo regulations or what, but there was some really cool pieces that I had not really seen, like a lot of the Vitensis and stuff like that. Really, like a bleeding apple one. Like, I got really excited because for the first time in a while, I'm like, oh, there's new coral that I haven't seen before. Also, Fiji open, so there's all that stuff coming back. So there's some newer pieces that are trickling in the industry for the first time in a while. It was stagnant for a couple years there, besides the Malaysian stuff. So then that kind of got old. No new stuff coming from there. So finally, some new stuff. Also, people seem to have better luck with NPS and stuff now, John's tank. So there's a lot of new species that are coming in, and we're getting better at keeping. And that's cool to me because what are people going to do with that? Probably some really amazing things.
Yeah. When we were at Vibrant Corals just after Aquashell at Dallas, Caleb was kind of showing us some of the Solomon Islands stuff, and you actually did a piece on that. Is it Favites? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was cool, dude.
So many different colors, and we've seen a lot of the color variations when it comes to that coral. If it was Favites or a Dipsastria or whatever, Sean Ono just did a whole article on how Favia is not Favia, at least in the hobby. And so I'm watching myself on the taxonomy stuff. But yeah, some really cool stuff coming out of the Solomons. Do you want to talk about the Acropora that you saw, or are you going to save that?
I'll talk about it. I'm going to write an article about it. I forgot this. I think he said it was Acropora pachoni, I think is what he said it was called. I can't remember, though, off the top of my head. Yeah. And so we're there. We unpacked an endo shipment. I'm looking in the tank where we put all the wild stuff, and I'm like, is that I thought it was a stylaster, one of they're not even corals, It's what fire corals are. Florian keeps them in Germany. They look like a really flat thing without any polyp extension. I'm like, do you get stylaster in? He's like, that's an acro. What the hell do you mean, Chris? It's this brown thing that looked like half a snowflake. It grew in this geometric pattern like a leaf, had little tiny baby green polyps, but it was 2-dimensional. It literally was as thin as a credit card. So they grow in super deep or super turbid water. And my thought was they grow and try to spread out as much as they can in a tabling fashion to maximize photosynthesis because they're really deep. So it was completely thin acro that was a deep water species. It's oh yeah, known about it for years. First time it's in the industry though. He acted like it was no big deal. My mind was blown. I was like, what the hell is that? It's a completely flat acro. So I mean that came from the Solomons as well, yeah. So there's so much weird stuff coming in.
If you missed the Reef recap from last week, it was basically 2 hours of Chris and Salem going around geeking out and cussing up a storm about corals.
Yeah.
That I think it was on. Did you guys showed that, right? The video was a little grainy. I'm not going to lie.
It was probably terrible.
It wasn't the best quality video, but I remember when we talked before Reef recap, you were like, Remy, I saw a 2D Acropora, and I was like, what are you talking about? No, it's 2D. It's flat.
I don't even care that it's brown, dude. It looked awesome.
No, it's super cool. I think Snowflake is a good kind of visualization of what that coral kind of represents or looks like. I wonder if being in the hobby now, if we can get it to, stay alive in the hobby and proliferate, if that structure will change because the environment is different based on the turbid or how deep it is, or, based on flow of your system. I wonder if that shape will change or if it will continue to hold that kind of 2D flat appearance.
I wonder if you got it acclimated to to higher par and may start to have typical growth. Maybe it would start branching and have a 3-dimensional growth. Because I looked it up and there were pictures. There was like one colony of like 50 on Google Images that had 3-dimensional growth. So I'm excited to see what Chris does with it. Then also he sent off a piece to another customer, which I saw as well. But I am not liable to speak about who bought it. But they will probably do well with it as well. They're good
All
spit
those
growers.
dang rich people, all the dang rich people that have the ends.
Have the ends of the SPS. What are you excited about, Remy?
I'm actually super excited about my Red Sea Reefer.
What's going on with it?
My 625. I'm super excited about it because it's rocking, and I'm not going to change much to it right now because it's just doing so well. And I know the people are like, Remy, show us your Red Sea. Show us an update video. And I will. I have shot it, however, and edited a lot of it, but I've added like probably 4 or 5 new pieces of coral that I want to make sure that I get in the update. And I'm growing Acropora for the first time fairly successfully. Like we got over the growing pain humps in kind of like I added some Acropora probably 3 to 5 months in. And we're actually this week going to be celebrating the 1-year mark on the tank being in the basement. So it's growing Acropora. They're puddling, as Chris Meckley would say, like they're encrusting onto the rocks and, puddling out. I think that's the best way to say that. And I'm excited about it. It's like, it's super fun to work with. And I think it's the most fun that I've had working with a tank because it's been, I don't want to like say the word easy at this point, but it's kind of just done the work. Yeah, it's kind of just been doing the work itself. And I really feel like it has a lot to do with the live sand from the beginning. I now look at people who start tanks with the white dry rock and it makes me feel a weird way.
Okay. Live sand elitist over here, huh?
a little bit, and I wouldn't say it's an elitist way to view it, but it's just like I look at that and I go, you are gonna have so much work ahead of you because you're putting that into your tank. And I don't want to tell anybody how to do the reefing thing. I'm just telling you that I've done that before. Almost every single tank that I've started has been 100% white Marco rock, totally dry, added bottled bacteria, all the things. And it's always been a struggle for the first year or so. You're dealing with nuisance algae, you're dealing with, bubble algae and nuisance algae and cyano and all the stuff, all the gross stuff. And I've kind of like skipped all that. There's some cyano and stuff on the rocks right now, but that's basically something that I'm going to alleviate with more flow. I don't have enough flow in the tank. I need more flow. That's an upgrade that I want to do, but I don't know. It just got me excited. I'm excited to go to the LFS and see a cool Acropora that I haven't seen and buy it and put it in my tank and know that it's probably going to do okay at this point. Again, I'm knocking on wood, okay? But I think that it had a lot to do with how I started the tank. I honestly do.
Your microbiome was pretty good, man. Besides like the few hiccups, but besides that, it was good. And like you said, like you showed me like your nutrients have been stable. They've been low, but they've been stable. But like maybe low nutrients are good now that we know this stuff. So I mean, I don't know. Ghanies were doing really well in your tank too.
Yeah, I have an ORA red Ghani. That's it's the only coral in there that's kind of tricky. It's not receding. It just doesn't like to come out. Like it'll come out for probably, maybe someone can help you or has had the same problem, but it'll come out for 2 or 3 hours, but not fully extend, probably midway extend. And then for the rest of the day, it'll just kind of tuck in. And this has been happening for probably since Aquashell at Dallas. It came out the first couple days, fully extended and everything, and now it's just kind of, I don't know if it's maybe too close to another coral that it doesn't like. Maybe there's a pest on it. I haven't dipped it. I don't know. I'm a little stumped on that coral in particular, but yeah, everything else seems to be doing okay.
are you doing traces and what? Because I've got an ORA red and it's fluffy. It is big. I do
Yeah,
well with that.
right. It's probably one of the most prolific ganies in the hobby. Everybody's got an ORA red in their tank, and all of my other ganies are doing fine. I've got the Grandmaster, one that I got from Ward. I've got like this teal looking one, a green one, and that red one is the one that is. Maybe I just move it somewhere else and see if maybe the flow is an issue or what's going on. But
I've got mine in pretty high flow and like relatively higher par. Not like 300, but it's like 200. And
yeah,
it seems it gets a lot. And also, I started doing traces. So I started doing traces. It's like real, like even happier. But it seems to like the higher par, higher flow compared to my other Ganies, at least. For
yeah.
sure. But
I'm just dosing all for Reef. That's it.
probably taking care of most of it. Maybe you're like low on iron or manganese, one of the really, heavy ones. But that's
Possibly.
probably doing most of it.
I did a full panel for the first time in probably 3 or 4 months. I'm regularly testing alkalinity, phosphates, and nitrates, but I did a full panel of everything, including magnesium and calcium. Calcium was the one I was a little worried about. I thought it was going to be a little high, but I was at 415 on the Hannah checker, so
Good enough.
thought that was good. It's a good number. So far so good on the all for Reef. I'm using the powdered stuff, so just been mixing that up. Honestly, I think my Red Sea dose is saying that I have 170 days on the amount. Like I think I've got like 2,500 milliliters in this reservoir right now. So I think from a economical standpoint, it's great, right? So I think the whole can was like $35-$40 or something like that, and I've only had to refill it once. So
You're making me very envious because 25 gallons of calc filled up weekly is a lot of work sometimes.
yeah, that is kind of a pain for a lot of people, but I'm maintaining everything. Again, all of my coral is very much in the frag era of its life. So we'll see what happens as those corals start to demand more of the larger elements, and we'll see. I might have to get into a different program just because it won't be able to keep up, but we'll see. We'll see. It's going well right now, and it's one of the things that has got me excited.
Awesome.
All right, hit us with another one.
Well, I'm also excited about Acropora because I had my buddy from college take care of my tank while I was gone, and he did a decent job. I'll give him that. I came home though, and I hear he hadn't been there in like 5 days. The ATO reservoir was completely empty, and my pump was about running dry. I was like, so once I assessed the damage, got it all taken care of. I got a bunch of acros right before I left, which was like the wrong time to get them. But yeah, most are still in there kicking. There's like 1 or 2 that bit it, which is like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Tank was probably not as stable as it would have been. The other ones are growing though. Got a Walt Disney that's doing well. I've got like one of the ASD rainbow millies. They're both like have visibly grown since I was gone. So
Yeah,
Acropora time. I'm gonna go spend way too much money on more now, I think.
the Disneys live. They live.
Yeah.
They're a hardy Acropora. And I love that about them because if you can cook them up, as you say, you can get some really awesome colors out of that coral. I've seen those things in all different color varieties. Mine very much is green right now. But if I added some more light to it, I'm sure I could probably amp up those purples and yellows and greens. But it's a hardy acro. I'll see this on the forums every once in a while, or on Facebook or Instagram. People will be like, I want to dabble in SPS. I want to maybe take the next. And I'm like, get a Disney Acropora. One of those, what is it? It's not tenuous anymore.
It's like Bifera.
Bifera, yeah.
Yeah.
Get one of those. It seems to do very well. It has done very well for me in all of my tanks. And I have not been very SPS heavy until the Red Sea. So
yeah, I think I definitely have the bug now after Chris's, and then coming home and seeing, even though the post-apocalyptic land state that was my friend Keaton taking care of the tanks, I've got growth. So I think I'm going to do a big old trade with Chris and get some sticks because, yeah, I really see the appeal now after staring at him for long enough. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited about acros. I'm liking
Yeah.
acros a lot.
It's a good vacation tip. I've got a decent sized vacation coming up. We're going to Philadelphia to see my in-laws, brother and sister-in-law. And my tactic has always been get the local fish store maintenance guy, whoever that is, to come over every other day. And usually that costs me in the neighborhood of like $25 to $35 per visit. Now, I'm thankful because my maintenance guy that lives very, very close, like in the same town as me. So he's like coming home from running the store, right? And just swings by the house, feeds the fish, makes sure the RO is filled, and then goes home. So it's no sweat, but it may be a little bit more expensive. But for me, the peace of mind of having someone who is capable of handling major maintenance emergencies when it comes to reefing is invaluable. Like it helps me sleep while I'm on vacation. I've done the whole neighbor thing before where they come over and it's just like just feeding the tank is a stressful event for someone who has never done it before. It's because they don't want to mess it up and they know that it's expensive. They know that everything in your tank is expensive. Even if you portion it out, they're still very nervous about putting anything in the tank. So I like having the local fish store come over every other day while I'm gone. It's a little bit of an added expense on a trip, but peace of mind. I know a lot of people have monitoring systems and you can kind of see everything from afar, but yeah, for me, I like to have a physical body in space.
See, with me, because my Wi-Fi sucks, my Apex kept going out, so I couldn't see what was happening either. I was like, oh, that's great. I'm sure Keaton's doing a great job. Yeah, I might have to do the LFS next time.
Yeah, if you could swing it for sure. My number 2 thing is the studio, the Reef Builder studio, is getting some massive upgrades.
Yes, it is.
I think I could talk about this. You're
Yeah,
actually gonna be going in a little bit. You're gonna be headed out there, and I think your main task is to install all that Neptune gear that we got.
Yep, and the tanks.
And yes, I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But before people get all bent out of shape, Neptune did send that to us for free to the studio to put it through the gauntlet. I feel like the studio is a great place to test any new products that are coming out now. I will say this: Neptune, most of the products except for the new Dose Quiet Drive and the NP are not new, and they've been in the hobby for a long time. Things are different, obviously, because Jake is no longer with us. So having remote monitoring is something that is such a positive because I can see what's going on from my phone. Salem can see what's going on from his phone. Raj from his phone, and anybody else on the team. And we can alert whoever is actually in Denver or Golden to go over to the studio and take care of whatever's going on. It also allows us to test other brands like Hydros and GHL and Reef Factory and all the different monitoring devices. So we're excited. We're on the list for Maven. So I think we might get a couple of those so we can test those out. But on top of all that, there are some new tanks. Do tell, Salem.
They're pretty slick looking. They're pretty nice. We're going to have to paint them white, though, because they're black. But we're going to have to paint them white. But yeah, they're like a weird dimension. Th're like 8x5, I think. Isn't it? Or is it 8x4?
Yeah. They're glass flats.
Yeah, so I don't know if the plan is to upgrade like all the flats to that or just have additional flats. I'm not sure what the plan is there. We'll have to kind of figure that out. But I will say that the old flats they're kind of in rough shape. A lot of really deep scratches on the acrylic. They've seen better days. So it does make sense to me to potentially upgrade the flats to some glass flats. Easier to maintain long term. We can use scrapers. There's volunteer help of people that come into the studio, and people don't always treat the tanks the nicest. So glass is a lot more durable than acrylic, and they look really slick. They're super nice tanks. So yeah, I'm excited.
We could, in turn, if we were to take down those acrylic flats, take them down, buff them out, make them look new again, and then maybe set them up in the future in a different spot, or leave them up there, take the mode aquarium down, the mode rack that's on that back wall where Jake had what was originally going to be his big fish quarantine system. It's been empty for a while. We could actually put another row of flats right up the middle there. I think is there 2 or 3 tanks?
I think there's 3. Then there's
3?
also 3 existing flats. You could have 3 back to back with each other. Oh, that'd be nice.
I like the farm feel.
I do too.
I think we can grow a lot of stuff in there. But that's got me excited. Not only the tanks, but all the gear that's been kind of going in. And unfortunately, because I'm in St. Louis, because Salem's in Topeka, we're not able to do as much recording at the studio as I would like. But I think if I'm going every other month, we should be able to document this. So
yeah, that's pretty much the plan is, because it's not too far of a drive for me, or like a flight is like 30 minutes. So we are going to be up there a lot more recording things, expanding. And I think the ultimate goal is to try to get some really cool coral in there again. So to keep tracking down those unique species, like those 2D acros, stuff that Jake would have probably very much liked. And having the studio be this reservoir of really unique pieces.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You got any more? Or are you tapped out?
I think I'm excited that there's a lot more innovation in the market right now compared to how it's been the last 5 or 6 years. Even if it's only like a little bit of innovation, there seems to be some new things trickling out. We had the new automation systems. There's like a lot of new pieces of equipment that I've been seeing. The European market has some really cool stuff. There's like phytoplankton reactors, stuff like that. We have aquabiomics. We've got, maybe there'll be some competition for organic testing now, and organic chemistry can be explored. So I think that right now there's a lot of attention and demand on trying to get some new things and better methods. And we might be seeing some new things in the future. So I think it's cool. I think that having new techniques and new tools and new pieces of equipment is the way that we're going to be able to keep, harder corals more successfully. Same thing as like gonnies. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, couldn't keep them. Now you've got 10, 20 in your tank that are aquaculture. So, yeah. Innovation's good.
Yeah. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. This hobby is in its infant stages. 100%. Like, there's so much that we have to learn about it. And you can tell that it's progressing by the success that our corals are having in our systems. I've listened to so many podcasts that Jake used to do with Mark, where the whole goal at the beginning of this hobby was to get coral to just stay alive in an aquarium. Any coral. It didn't matter what kind it was, just to get it to grow and stay alive. And that's it. And now, propagation, spawning, we're propagating like scolies and things like that. Like, you're taking knives and razors and saws to corals now, and they're living and doing and proliferating and doing well. And that kind of stuff is super exciting, I think. So you bring up a good point with constant innovation, people thinking outside of the box. I think you're a part of that for sure, and the youth of the hobby is a part of that for sure.
I think the thing that I'm most impressed with is the spawning. So after talking to Don and Lou, oh, that's awesome. Like grafted gonnies, designer corals for the industry. But not just, that's the industry application. But you got people like Jamie Craggs that are spawning, coral, like, almost every species that's given to him, he can spawn now. Like, that's so important for conservation. Like, you can scale up a species so much faster than just asexual reproduction and fragging, and you get genetic diversity. So there's no burnout either in terms of that population. So, I mean, the fact that we can spawn things now with rudimentary tools, like, most of the lights, probably are not even doing a very good job of mimicking the moon cycle. So now almost all the new lights that are coming out, like, there's the new Hydros Tulio light, and like they've got like the Moonline module in there, so there's innovation in that regard too. There's innovation in the industry with the intention of application for conservation work, for spawning. And I think that that's like the ultimate kind of place that this industry is heading, is all of these products can help inform academia. Because, I mean, just talking to people in academia, they might have very in-depth understanding of the nuances and complexities of this molecular pathway of Acropora, cervicornis, or palmata. But in terms of actually keeping coral alive and propagating them, they don't have the experiential knowledge. They don't have the technique down. So the more that we can give to those people doing the really important work, the better, I think. And it seems we're starting to head in that direction.
I always found that interesting in college. My radio professor, because I had a radio professor, wasn't actually on the air, but could talk to it from a textbook standpoint, could teach you about the ins and outs of, research of how people listen to the radio and what keeps them tuned in longer and all those things, but didn't actually do it anymore. And I always felt that there was a huge disconnect there. And I know that a lot of us, probably not yourself, but like someone like me who is coming at this from a hobbyist perspective and, don't have the science background, the breadth of the science background that a lot of the people who study specifically corals, Acropora, cervicornis, or whatever. There's that hybrid. And I think you're one of those special people where you're that hybrid where you kind of have an understanding of both of these things. And that's valuable, I think. And not just to build you up, Buttercup, but also because I think spawning is the future of this hobby. I think spawning is the future for conservation. If we can harness that, I looked in my tank last night as the moon cycle was on, and I was like, I wonder if maybe it's happened before in my tank, and you just don't know. It just all gets sucked down on the filtration, and you never see it. You never see any of those bundles. So I looked last night, and I didn't see anything.
You gotta, September, man, big spawning month there. But
yeah,
gotta check your ORP if it dips. It might have happened, but yeah, in terms of like the people with a foot in both worlds, I think the best example and the most successful is, Amanda and Chris Beckley and Carrie O'Neill. Like, you've got someone that works in academia, spawned a ton of species that are endangered Caribbean species, and then two people that have been in the industry for 20 plus years that are one of the most successful, industry people, and they work together and spawned a Canthophilia for the first time ever. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's the stuff that we need, is both parties informing each other of how to do something, and then they come to that conclusion. So I think in the years to come, we might see a lot more of those types of partnerships. Or even like Rich Ross spawned them in his house. That's cool. So hopefully more people take a stab at it.
In his kitchen. I love that. I love Rich and Jamie are probably my two favorite stories of, like, it's just, I don't know, we're making it happen in our house. What's up?
Yeah, Jamie applied one time, and he just had like a conical test tube. He's like, "Yep, here's the egg and sperm. Here's my kitchen table. I've got about 4 of these." And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I would say if you're a hobbyist listening to this right now, pick a genus and just like go for it. Like, just learn everything you can about the genus, when it spawns, how how that all happens, the time of year, all the stuff, and maybe build like a broodstock tank and just try, because I think there's not a lot of people just trying it. And there's gonna be a whole lot of mess ups, and there's gonna be that failure creates the way, if you will, the game plan, the workflow for everybody else. So pick a genus you like and just see if you can't reproduce it in some way.
The people that have just tried have had success.
Yeah,
Richard Ross, and then like Lou's like, I just read all Jamie's papers and tried it. So
yep. Yeah,
they're doing it. So
yeah, that would probably be your first step, would be to read Jamie's paper.
Yep.
On coral spawning in captivity, and then pick a genus and just go. Yeah, just try it out. So, very less scientific, exciting thing for me is the Tideline 65 gallon behind me that has sat empty and dormant. I challenge anybody to show me a receipt from an aquarium and stand that they purchased that is older than 2 years. I purchased the tank and stand in February of 2022. I have yet to put a coral in it. I have leak tested it. It passed. But I challenge anybody. If you can show me a receipt of a tank that has sat empty for longer than 2 years, right?
So are you getting it wet?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a wet.
What are you gonna do?
I think I'm gonna go the Tyler inland reef kind of route with mangroves and a lagoonal style Caribbean feeling, that kind of route. Softies, gorgs. I just want something. So you see the like blue Windex ass tank here. Like I'd love to have a natural light tank as well to kind of contrast in this room. So, and I'm such a fan of like cool inverts and weird fish and weird corals. Like I'd love a tank just to toss that all into. And it's an all-in-one, so it's not going to be super complex. And I don't have a lot of room to make it super complex. So why not pick some easy corals? I say easy, but like some hardier corals that will thrive in that tank. Maybe slap a few weeping willows in there and let's do it. Put some mangroves in there. Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go.
You should get like a mini maxi with like 40 sexy shrimp.
I'll do that.
I always liked that. That was like my favorite goofy thing that I never see anyone do. Mini maxi sexy shrimp. Like it's so cool. Like do a pistol shrimp goby, just like weird symbiosis. Oh, okay. The craziest one you should do. Have you ever seen Sauron shrimp Medusa worm?
Oh, nice. I have not seen that.
It's
No.
crazy, dude. Like, Sauron shrimps are like, Joe Rowlett just had like a 5,000 word article. They're like a crazy psychedelic
Oh, yeah.
shrimp.
Yeah.
But they'll just ride on the back of these crazy big cucumbers. But they're like Medusa worms. They've got like the crazy mouth that comes out. You can see them feeding.
Yeah.
Chris could probably get them in. You should do one of those. That'd
Yeah.
be crazy. Remy, the other thing I'm excited about is Reefstock Chattanooga. Let me tell you.
It was on my list as well. It was what I was going to wrap with, but let's go now. Let's go.
We had a big meeting about all of it. And I think it's going to be a really fun event. It's going to be like the perfect fusion of like MACNA and like a normal trade show. Like we've got a huge education emphasis now. We got some experimental little talks and things we're doing. I'm going to do it. The team didn't want to do it, but I'm going to do it single-handedly. I'm going to have a Socratic seminar. I sit up in the middle of the floor. I'm going to get a case of beers from the vendors that are like there, and I'm going to put it in the middle, and I'm going to set up a circle of chairs, and we're all just going to talk. Whoever wants to talk, we can just talk. So I'm doing that. Raj can't tell me no. I will unilaterally execute this, and he cannot stop me. So stay tuned for the Socratic seminar with beer. We're going to have a bunch of really good speakers, and we're probably going to have a mixer to where everyone can come beforehand and just party and have great food and cocktails and whiskey and bourbon because it's Tennessee, and we just talk about reef stuff until like 5 a.m. And it's like everyone can have that show experience, even if they're not staying at the hotel.
I do know that the happy hour thing is going to be happening.
Happy hour.
It will be. I think we have to charge some sort of something to get in, but this doesn't happen very often at trade shows. Usually they'll have something for the vendors, and it's like a VIP party. And if you're a hobbyist or an attendee, you can't. You're not normally invited to that. But we're gonna try. I think we're gonna try something new. Don't quote me on this because I don't have all the details, but Raj and I were going back and forth on names for it, and I came up with Briny Brews.
I like that.
Or corals and cocktails.
Oh, that's good too. Okay.
Tidal toast.
I like corals and cocktails the most so far.
What about a reef? What about reef rendezvous? Nautical nights? No.
Dude, how many did you come up with?
I have like 9 here.
Okay.
Those are the best. The salty soiree. Look, I've lived in the radio world for 20 plus years of my life, and alliteration is king of the castle. Okay, so get off my back.
I think we're gonna have
okay.
Yeah, we're basically screw the VIP party. We are having a public party. Everyone can just come and drink and eat, and it's going to be so fun. And we're going to have a cash prize from whatever poor amount of college funds I have in my pocket for whoever can beat Remy and I at a shotgun competition. This is happening. This is not Reef Builders sanctioned. This is our personal, this is our likeness sanctioned. So Raj cannot get mad when this is published. These are things you can show me this recording. I will do it right then and there. So,
I will also say that this is all unauthorized. So whatever he is saying right now is all him.
It's all me. I'm doing it. I'm going to make it happen.
The views do not reflect that of Reef Builders, and you can run your workshop however you want, my guy.
I'm doing the case of beer and the.
I would say instead of a case of beer, I would say like a case of 7-Up, just to kind of get around, all of the people that are going to be like, oh, Reef Builders is trying to get fans by giving them beer. See.
All right, yeah, we're gonna have ginger ale and water, and
there you go.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. It is fine.
That's fine.
I think I'm most excited about all of the things, because I think one of the biggest pieces that I took from Reefstock Denver was the educational component that we brought to that show, specifically with the different podcasts that we have. The Microbial Men came out of that, so we had really great conversation about the bacterial microbiome. Brought it down to a level for the average hobbyist to understand and actually, take into consideration with their own tanks. There's a lot of great speakers, a lot of great educational. There's a lot of great educational value there, but also we've got a ton of great vendors as well. So you can go around and get the coral that you want, but also learn how to raise the coral that you just bought, which I think is pretty cool. And it's in Chattanooga, which I've never been to. You just kind of...
We went through it. I ate there. I was in Chattanooga.
So how is it?
I liked it. It was like it's like a great mix between like a big city and like a larger town. It's like a small city. So everything was walkable. There was a lot of really good places to eat. There was like some distilleries. There were like some kind of like rooftop bars that were really nice. There's a public aquarium there. I've been to some events for school of the Chattanooga in the past, and it's really nice. Like, safe at night. You can walk around. It's pretty cool. I liked it a lot. Real quaint kind of place. Not hustle and bustle, but still all of like the culture of a city. So I think it's a great location for sure.
Yeah, if you're coming in for the show specifically and you're maybe flying in or you're driving a long distance, I would plan a couple extra days on the front or on the back and, go hang gliding, because that's in like all of their tourism videos is hang gliding. So it's got to be a thing, right? We all can hang glide. Hang gliding.
Smoky Mountains, there's all that right there. There's a lot of fun stuff to do.
There's some whitewater rafting, I think, in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the great live music, all the things, right? We're not just paying Reefstock lip service here and telling you to come and making it a big endorsement, but I really think you'll enjoy it. And I think it's an underserved area. It's about an hour and a half north of Atlanta, but that area of the country, I think, is missed by larger shows. So here we are. Reefstock coming to your town, Chattanooga. Reefstock.show/Chattanooga to get your tickets and all the information. So...
Do you want to talk about the special reef therapy we will have at Reefstock Chattanooga?
I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't.
All right. We're making a thing now because it was mentioned once during the meeting, and I love the idea. We're going to have a special reef therapy episode. It'll be Remy and I, and there will be a third mic. And we're going to have a line of people. And we're going to be going for like multiple hours, and we'll just edit the best ones. And this is what it's going to be, episode 122 or whatever we're on, what grinds your gears. And we're going to let every person come up that wants to speak and tell us what grinds your gears about the hobby. It's going to be a bit session where everyone just gets to say their piece, and we're going to edit all these together, and it's going to be hilarious.
What I think would be funny is if like the people couldn't hear what the other person's pet peeve was in the hobby, because I feel like we could take a tally at the end of it and we could gather data. And I guarantee you the one that would be on top is stupid named corals.
Probably. Yeah. Stuff's too expensive and it's got a stupid name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to be on reef therapy, show up to Reefstock Chattanooga. And
I think it might be fun to do that. to do that live. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might have to fight Raj too, because he might want to be a part of it.
Well, Raj and I will have to figure that out at the Corals and Cocktail, having the race with
Yeah.
the beers. So
Yeah.
there will be a
Whoever.
sanctioned competition.
We're quickly moving off the rails. I love it. Yeah, so get your tickets at reefstock.show/Chattanooga. Lots of things that we still are kind of working out, but we've got, I think, 50-ish days until Reefstock Chattanooga. So
in summation, it will not be a normal trade show where it's just the buy X product or die. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're pretty fun. If either of you have met Remy or I or Raj outside of this setting, pretty fun to hang out with. It's going to be a fun time, and there's going to be a lot of education.
Yeah.
It's going to be the best of both worlds. And also, if you're interested, if you're on the fence, be sure to get a ticket by the end of July, because the hotel reservations will actually close by that time. So you got about a month period to get your tickets.
Yeah, I think as long as I can go to bed by 9:15-ish at night, I'm good. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'll be up all night. All right, my last exciting thing is it's a little bit of a left turn.
Okay.
We're gonna exit saltwater.
Are you doing it finally? What I showed you, my sweet little gem of a world?
I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but I'm gonna start a neocardina tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
The shrimps.
The shrimps.
Oh, I love them.
I'm very excited about this. When I was in South Carolina, Jimmy, who used to work with Aquarium Co-op, Jimmy, the camera guy, and we had a long talk about it because he's a freshwater guy, and he's like, dude, they're so easy. I don't know why freshwater intimidates you so much. And I was like, so why does saltwater intimidate you so much? You know, it's like this whole, you know, he's calling corals different things that obviously aren't right. And I'm calling, you know, Anubias and all of this, you know, all these typical freshwater plants wrong. I'm not getting them right, but we're all learning. And he's very much convinced me that it's super easy and it's also pretty rewarding. They reproduce a lot, I guess, which is cool. So, and you can come up with new colors and all that. So I'm pretty excited, but I'm going to start one of those.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going to get those yet, but I know Rob with Flip Aquatics and what's Grant. Grant has a lot of them.
Some. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. My son has a betta tank, and I've been kind of I've been taking care of that for the past however many months now since Christmas. And it is easy. I will say freshwater isn't as intimidating as, because I grew up around, like, that's what got me into saltwater was freshwater, but I like totally evacuated all of that from my memory, and it became this intimidating thing all of a sudden. But when you can just take tap water and throw some dechlorinator in, and then you're it's good. The thing that I'm not super familiar with is all, you know, we're so used to nuisance algae, bubble algae, you know, all the cyano, all the things. So freshwater has their own set of nuisance things that happen whenever you're starting a new tank. So I just need to know how to take care of that and not suck up the entire bacterial microbiome with a hose every time I do a water change. So
Remy, I am going to come to St. Louis and I'm going to pimp this tank for you. I used to be a hardcore shrimp breeder, and I have all of my equipment still. We're going to get you a CO2 system. We're going to get you, I've got guys, I'm going to get cuttings of all the coolest plants. We're going to scape it. We're going to get you driftwood. We're going to have the tannins. We're going to have catappa leaves. We're going to get you root tabs. Oh yeah, for shrimp.
I was just hoping for a sponge filter and some shrimp, and that's it.
No, we're making this a living jungle, man. This is an ecosystem. We're gonna have the sponge filter, the shrimp, but you're gonna hide the sponge filter with a brilliant Dutch-style Planet aquascape. We're gonna have a CO2 system. We're gonna have root tabs. We're going to have you dose in carbon. You could dose carbon. You can do carbon dosing. It's good in this instance because it feeds the plants. It's fertilizer. Oh, it's going to be great. You're going to love it. It's like a reef tank, but cooler.
The last thing I need is the maintenance of a reef tank in a freshwater system. I was really going for
this is closed loop.
Little shrimps in a little tank, little 9-gallon tank with a little sponge filter.
Once you get it going, it takes care of itself. The plants will just absorb the excess nutrients. No water changes. Once a week, you pour a little bit of the carbon and some iron in. You got like the shrimp GH stuff for hardness. Use your RO water still. Don't dechlorinate. That's better for the neos because they like soft acidic water. Jimmy and I we're gonna talk you through this. I am so excited.
Your shrimp.
I'm more excited about this than anything else we've talked about on this podcast. I love freshwater, man. I'm gonna set up a shrimp tank again too. I think now I miss them. I saw that the American shrimp competition at Aqua Dallas, and I was like, oh my god, I forgot how cool these were. I don't even care. I don't even want to look at the coral. I want to see this intricate pattern on this Cardinia. I don't even know what strain this. It's got orange eyes. When they do this, I've been out.
when did they make these?
Yeah, when did they make this one? This is a cool one. Shrimp, man. I'm so happy for you. You're gonna love it.
The freshwater tanks in the studio are pretty nice. Like Jake had a really good eye for freshwater as well.
Yeah.
And I hope to at some point in my career of aquarium keeping come back to it and embrace it a little bit more than I have. But
what I was thinking, you've got the Windex tank on the right, or I guess your left. In the back you'll have like the daylight tank. On the other side, you need to get like a discus tank that's black water. So you'll have like this gradient of like a yellow brown tank and then daylight and then blue. You can see the beauty of everything, the lagoon, the reef, and the river.
I think you've just mapped it all out for me.
That's my vision for you.
But that's
my vision. Yeah, that's my vision that I want, but I can't afford it. So I'm living vicariously through you now.
Well, come on over. You're welcome anytime.
Okay. Comments #PimpYourShrimp if you would like Remy to get a freshwater tank.
I mean, I think it's happening, but we'll still take the comment.
Yeah.
Now that #What's in your water is no longer.
#PimpYourShrimp.
I fear that we will get no comments on reef therapy ever again because that was the only way to do that was to incentivize. So. But yeah, I want to thank you for joining us on this session of Reef Therapy, things that get you excited in the hobby or things that you're excited about right now. I hope maybe you've drawn a little bit of inspiration from this podcast and maybe you take that along with you on your journey. I know we've got some guests coming up. Very excited for Algagen will be on. Eric's going to be on. Dr. Tim perhaps will be coming on the podcast. We're working on some scheduling stuff and we've got a lot of fun guests coming up in the future. So Salem will grill them and I will sit back and have popcorn.
Oh my God. I wanted a nice conversation about phytoplankton, man.
No, I'm kidding. Nobody will be grilled, but good conversation will be had and we'll all be better for it. So thanks for joining us on this session of Reef Therapy. We will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
See ya.